Well, members, it's time to do a little tutorial on removing seed from Alcantarea. 9 months ago, this plant was in flower and it was individually hybridized back on itself. And then we wait 9 further months and then the seed starts to show evidence that it's ready to be harvested. And indications that the seed is mature enough is these elongated ends of your seed pods. Also, you may start to see some seeds start to break apart, like this one here, and be dispersed. So that's a really good indication that the seed head is starting to mature. But usually it's an indicator is looking for these longer heads as the seed starts to retract and therefore prepare for the bursting periods. So this can be done in a couple of ways. We can take the whole seed head and take it indoors. We can wrap it up in a big bag if you like, or you can come out and just harvest each day the ones that you're prepared to wait or start to allow for the time for them to dry. Now, what you can do to hasten the process is you can bend and snap back these bracts, and by breaking the bracts back, that stops any further nutrients going towards the seed, and then the seed will then dry much faster, and then you'll be able to harvest them and sow them a lot quicker, depending on the type of climate that you're in. So what you end up with is several of these little seed pods here, and each of those contains several hundred seeds if you've got a really healthy pollinization of the seed 9 months ago. Now, me, myself, I like to have some control over my seed and my seed heads as it's starting to mature. So this is a seed head that I was pollinating back on itself, plus back on its siblings, way back in November and October last year, and we're now in July, August of the following year. So like I said, we're around 9 months later. So because I've put so much effort into this seed head, I've brought it in to an enclosed area where I've got a lot more control over the seed. So like I was saying, you can snap some of the seed back, and by breaking them, it will make the seed dry faster. This seed below will then dry faster, so that you're able to harvest it all approximately at the same time. So I tend to go along and do that once it's been inside here for a few days, which it has. Now, I've already started to harvest a few of these ones, so I happen to know that these seed are already mature. But like I said, what you're looking for is this distinct pulling back of the outer bracts of what was the flowers, and so these bracts start to shrivel back and expose these nice sharp little tips. And what that will then do, will go inside, is it'll then dry further, and then the seed will burst open, in which case it is a parachute seed. So what you end up with is seeds scattered. On a windy day, you can lose an entire head, which is why I said I want to have some control. So I've got some seed outside that yesterday was an incredibly windy day, so I was scampering around collecting seed. So that began the process of how to quickly get the seed inside and start to separate it. So here outside is a very dry, obviously, Alcantarea head, and what you're looking at is the seed pods beginning to burst. As you can see, there are 3 little pods in each one, and if I give them a little bit of a shake and just help to open up the seed a little bit further, what I end up with is fairly much a nice handful. That's just one little tiny seed pod. Seed from this particular plant. Plenty more still on this plant. Now I have collected already a lot of this seed, And so this is a green form. This is Odorata cross Glazuriana pink brax. Now I happen to have a lot of this seed already stored, so I'm allowing the rest of the seed to blow away as it would on a very windy day. But there's still thousands and thousands of seeds in here that I could be going along and collecting, and I may come out and grab some spares anyway, because the seed can be reserved and kept in a airtight container in your fridge for several years, and then going back and we can resow this time after time, year after year, but it will still be the same batch, same Greek. So you can see there's lots open here. Let's go inside. Alright, so what I do is I bring all my seed in and I separate it into its individual containers. Each one is a different Alcantarea. The one that you saw me harvesting outside, that's this one here, which is my Glazuriana pink bract, which has been crossed with Odorata. There's another one of it over there. So this is the finished seed, which will be getting sown in the next few days. So what you end up with, for example, we'll use this one because these are a little bit drier. Or this one here. This is Queenslander. So for those of you who've been watching, Queenslander is one of my own hybrids. I self-pollinated and pollinated its seed back on itself. That's the big head that we saw just outside, just prior to me coming inside. So as the seed dries further and further, you end up with this happening. The little pouches open. And if you remember back when we were hybridizing them, I was saying that there were 3 sections of the stigma, and each of those needed to be loaded up with pollen when you were hybridizing or pollinating Alcantarias. And this is why. These are those 3 tiny stigmas that have developed into seed capsules, which has then provided me with all of these seeds. Okay, so these are my own hybrids once again, so none of these are available and would be available. So I can harvest these seed, including that giant seed head that you've seen outside, over the next months. And then all of this seed can be resown over several years, and I won't have to repeat the original hybridization to get that Queenslander. Instead, I can put its seed that I'm producing here to grow the next generation, which will be Queenslander F2s. Okay, I will have to repeat the original hybridization of Queenslander and then select the specific plant again to get a Queenslander. The process takes that one outside that you see flowering, that's 15 years later. So it's a long process when you're doing these big giant Alcantarias. So you want to get it right the first time if you can, or at least generally speaking. So you need to know your genetics a little bit. So that's your flower empty of the seed. 9 months after it's been pollinated. So you end up with quite a fair bit of seed. I'm not saying that you don't, but out of all of this seed, not all of it will eventually grow into a plant. There's a lot that can happen in those years that can change whether or not you want to keep the plant or not, but there's a fairly good chance these ones are going to be some quite nice deep red varieties. So that's one variety. So this here is the big flower stalk that you saw at the beginning of the video. So they're still a little bit green, so they're not ready yet. So they're just kept in a container that allows for the exchange of moisture. You don't want to seal these. If you do, you'll end up with all sorts of problems from mold and fungi. But the best thing to do would be to remove as much plant material as you can from these seeds as you are removing them. And then by removing as much of that plant material, you're eliminating, once again, additional fungi. So putting a seed capsule such as this back into dry, as I did here with these ones here, is perfectly acceptable. And then as they dry, they will burst, and then your seed will end up looking like this. And then from this point on, you can open it and remove the seed from down that seam I've shown videos on removing Alcantarea seeds in the past. All right, so for quite a while, there's a lot of harvesting of seed because it takes quite a while to harvest all the different seed. This particular one is another one that I've been working on for the last couple of days. It's a Divine Plum F2. I already have enough seed to put my first sowing down, but I still need to remove all of this additional seed. So the seed is just kept loosely in this container where it's drying and naturally opening and bursting on its own. So that's how we go about 9 months after the fact of doing all of the hybridization. We can finally start to get our seed and start the process all over again. And then in about 3 or so years' time, we'll have ourselves some little seedlings that we will be able to determine whether or not we want to keep and whether they survive the culling process of hopefully producing, in the case of this one, Queenslander, a lovely, really sun-tolerant, deep, dark red, glossy, coloured Alcantarea that will be perfect for landscaping in the future here in Australia in southeast Queensland. All right, and that's the end of my video. Happy gardening all. Bye now.